Hey, warriors. So, anyways, I want to talk about something that I don't think gets enough attention. I, however, talk about it quite often, but I don't see a lot of other people talking about it. Um, a lot of what you're seeing online right now isn't awakening, it's performance. However, the shift happening right now is kind of moving away from that, which is a really good thing. Um, this phase of awakening, right now, it's not loud. It's just honest. Do you know what I mean? That's some on my lip. Um, but anyways, spiritual performance, is when expression becomes about being seen instead of, being true. I know you've seen a lot of it because I know I have. Um, it looks like constantly needing to announce your level, you know, uh, constantly naming your titles, constantly proving how awake, healed, or gifted you are, speaking in ways that sound powerful but don't actually land in your body. You know what I'm saying? Um, Performance, is driven by identity maintenance, if you will, not embodiment. Um, and here's the truth, a lot of people don't want to hear, well, a lot of creators don't want to hear. You can sound spiritual, and still be deeply disconnected from yourself, you know? Um, Authentic expression, comes from it comes from your nervous system, not your fucking ego. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't come from excitement or from adrenaline. You know what I mean? It comes from regulation. When your nervous system is settled. You know what I'm saying? You don't rush to speak. You don't need validation. You don't need to correct others. You don't need to convince anyone of anything. Your words come from a knowing, you know, not your reaction, I guess. You see what I'm saying? Um, that's why authentic people, often sound simple, clear, calm, grounded. And ironically, that's what actually carries power. You see? Um, and I guess what I'm, trying to speak of now is why, performance used to be, I don't know, mistaken for awakening, Earlier phases of awakening were about, expansion, realization, identity breaking, excitement, and that phase can look, I don't know, loud, I guess, it can feel electric, I guess, if I'm, explaining this correctly, but that's not the destination, that's the doorway. I've said this before. When people get stuck there, awakening becomes something they do instead of something they are. You see my point? Um, and that's where performance, starts to take over. Uh, Real awakening, makes you more human, not less. And I've said this before, here's something that might surprise people. True awakening doesn't remove your humanity, it deepens it, And I know that a lot of people get this all jumbled up, mystic, but it does, you become more emotionally honest, more aware of your limitations, more humble, more willing to learn, you know, you stop needing to be the highest voice, I guess, in the room, you stop needing to impress. You stop needing to, you don't speak to be impressive, I guess is what I'm saying. You speak because it's true, plain and simple, you know. And I guess why the collective is pulling away from this right now, this performative spirituality, if you will. People are fucking tired, you know? They're tired of fear narratives, hierarchy, constant urgency, I'm further than you energy, that kind of shit, What people are craving now, is sincerity, calm leadership, grounded wisdom, safety, and presence. This is why quieter voices are starting to land deeper than dramatic ones, I guess. Authentic expression doesn't announce itself, Here's a key distinction. Performance says, look at who I am. Authentic says, this is what I've learned. You see the difference there? Authentic expression, doesn't need titles or labels or approval, agreement. It just is, and people feel it immediately. Not in their head, but in their body. We've all learned enough to feel recognize what we feel when we're feeling it. It's a big part of awakening. I guess that's maybe the difference now. When you see a video online, if it sparks fear in your body, we know the differences. We're becoming more aware of the differences, I guess is my point. And why this phase can feel, uncomfortable, I guess, if you're in a phase where, you don't want to perform anymore, you don't want to post constantly, you don't want to explain yourself, you don't want to compete anymore. You know what I'm saying? It just gets exhausting, that doesn't mean you're losing your voice, though. It means your expression is integrating, plain and simple. You're becoming embodied, not activated. That word everybody loves so much to use. Oh, I'm getting activated. Come on. Let's try to keep it, Anyways, a reminder for anyone sharing wisdom. If you're teaching, speaking, posting, or guiding others in any form, speaking from lived experience, leave room for learning, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Don't confuse confidence with authority. That's what we just broke away from. Let's not fall back into it. You know what I mean? Don't confuse presence with superiority. You know what I mean? The most powerful teachers don't stand above, they stand with. You might be a teacher of teaching kids how to tie shoes. How does that make you better than the next person? It doesn't. Right? So, yeah. This isn't a time for, to perform spirituality. It's a time to embody it. And I think a lot more people are getting on board with that. Less noise, more truth, less proving, more being. So if your awakening feels quiet right now, you're not falling behind. And I say that constantly. But you're maturing. Love you.